Hi everyone, I'm Tom and today I'm going to be showing you Leviathan Wilds, which is a new 1-to-4 player cooperative game about these great big once gentle leviathans who lost their minds and tore the world apart. After generations of hiding and struggle, humanity discovered that these leviathans can be restored. And climbers, that's us, willing to take the risk, must explore the wilds and work together to heal these leviathans before we're defeated by the perilous climb. This is on Kickstarter right now. I'll put a link in the corner of the screen and in the description to the campaign page where you can see all of the final stuff. This is a work in progress. There'll be some cards that have still got placeholder art and things, but it should give you a very good idea of how the final game is going to look. And you probably have noticed that it's on Tabletop Simulator because of logistics and availability of prototypes and all of that stuff. I hope though that you'll still get a great idea of the game from this, and if you are so inclined, you can download this open beta as well and have a go yourself. Check it out in the Steam Workshop page for Tabletop Simulator. So we've set up the Leviathan that we're attempting to heal at the moment. That is Sage. And there's also a little cog here in the corner. This is the complexity of the Leviathan you're facing or the character that you're playing as. On the Leviathan are various spaces that are going to be hazards we need to overcome. And there are also these crystals that we basically need to heal. If we can heal them all, we win the game, or we will die trying. There are normal crystals, the white ones in this prototype, and the blue ones are blighted crystals. They're going to be a problem to fix. And you can see a grid of dots, which is what we are going to climb up. Whenever you see this symbol here, then that's a ledge. We're safe on those. There are open spaces you'll just fall through. There are hazardous spaces that can make you lose your grip or lose your health. And there are mushrooms we can collect, which can give us some nice bonuses if we can grab them. These are all different based on the Leviathan that we are against. Each one also has a deck of threat cards, which we shuffle and display here. And they're going to get more hazardous as the game goes on. Each one also has like an introduction and a conclusion card. So looking at our introduction, we have arrived. Through the mountain pass we marched, crossing into the territory we call the Wilds. But our work has only just begun. Already we find an afflicted Leviathan, designated the Sage. Immediately we shall heed the call of the Climbing Guild and do our utmost to heal this poor creature. Enough about the Leviathan though, let's have a look at our characters. So there are a number of characters that you can pick and classes that you can pick, and you basically mix and match. So I am playing as Fix, who is going to be a mender this game. You know, I've picked one for each player and there's still all of these available ones that do go up in complexity. I've picked simpler ones to start us off. So your character has a special ability and a couple of cards specific to them. And your class has a lot of specific cards. You end up with 10 in your deck. Your deck is also your grip on your Leviathan. When you run out of cards in your deck, then you will fall down to the next ledge. We start with maximum health, the red cube, and minimum blight, 0 on there. And we also have a hand of 3 cards. The cards can represent different things. There is a big number in the corner that represents how many action points that card can give us if we choose to play that at the start of our turn. In doing that, we give up the ability that's going to be on it for now, but we can also use our other cards for their skill effects. There are also symbols on some of the cards that will let you avoid the dangers that are present on the Leviathan. So Fix is good at some heavy striking and healing others perhaps, and Kestrel can take flight and jump around a bit, and is a free climber, so hopefully we'll be able to maneuver about quite a lot. So we take turns one at a time, doing 4 steps. We reveal threat, reveal one of these cards, and do the thing on it that's usually bad for us. We activate our climber and perform our actions. We resolve the threat card that we revealed earlier, and then we draw up to 3 cards. The rage track here starts in a different position depending on the difficulty you want to play as. I've gone for normal, which is just on 0 here, but you can go a little bit easier for story difficulty and hard and expert. They will basically mean that the harder the difficulty you've chosen, the more cards will start enraged. That's rotated upside down, and you'll use their enraged, their tougher effect, right from the get-go rather than happening later on. So if you look at what happens on a turn, you reveal the threat and have a look at the card. So it hasn't been enraged yet, so we look at the top bit. So it means all, that targets all of the players, -1 grip. Whenever you see that symbol, that represents grip, and grip is our deck. And remember, when you run out of cards in your deck, you will fall down. So that's what we know is going to affect all players after I have had my turn. So if I had cards that say, let me draw more cards or do some cool abilities but lose my grip, I might want to be wary of doing that, knowing that I'm losing an extra grip after I've had my actions. So activating the climber, I choose one of my cards to put on top of my board, and this is going to be how many action points I get this turn. I think I'm going to go for Back in My Day. It hasn't got a skill effect, so I don't need to save it for that, and it's going to let me avoid a lot of hazards while giving me 4 action points as well. You can slide this under your player board when you're not playing it virtually, of course. So I've given myself 4 action points, and we can see from the player board the actions that I can take. I can spend an action point to climb. Climbing is moving 1 space orthogonally. So I could move across, I could move up, down, left or right, depending on where I started. And at the start of the game, we could choose to start on any of these ledge ones. You can also jump for 3 action points. This lets you move 2 spaces, but you jump, you skip a space. So if I was over here, I could jump up and avoid this hazard effectively. Hey, physics getting in the way there. Or jump over an empty space. You can also jump diagonally if that helps you out. So from this space, I could jump to this space over here. So jumping lets you move 2 spaces orthogonally in a straight line or 1 space diagonally. You can also glide. This costs as much AP action points as you want to spend, and it's basically how many spaces you want to go. So if later on I am on this space, you can only glide down, of course, but for 1 action point, I could glide a space down either orthogonally or I could go diagonally. So moving from here to any of these spaces with a glide would only cost me 1 action point. Or for 2 action points, I could glide even further down and go to any of these spaces if I wanted to, because you go in a big diagonal like that. Now, just like jumping, you ignore any of the spaces that you glided over. You only resolve the spaces that you land in. You can strike. So if you are on a space with a crystal, then you can reduce the crystal's value based on the number of AP you want to spend. So if I was in this space and I could spend 5 AP, I could completely cure that crystal and get rid of it. You remove it if the number would reach 0. If you are striking a blighted crystal, a blue one, then you gain a blight. It's just 1 blight no matter how much striking you do to it in 1 action though, so you want to try and have as many action points saved up as you can. Now your health and blight are on the same track. If these cubes ever share the same space or they cross over, then you are defeated. So you've really got to watch out, not just on losing your health, but also on gaining blight. And the last 2 actions, for 2 action points, if you are on a ledge, you can rest. Shuffle your discard pile and pop it underneath your deck. This is how we keep grip and stop from falling down. And for 1 action point, you can mend 1. You can heal 1. You don't need to be on a ledge to just heal a little bit. You can also do some anytime actions. Those mushroom tokens, you can forage them, you can reveal them, flip them over and have a look at what they are if you're next to them. You can pick 1 up. You can use its ability. You can flip it over. You can let go. So you can drop down from whichever space you're on to the next ledge. So from here, might be a bit daft because I would fall all the way down here, resolving all of these things. Sometimes you're made to fall, like if you're pushed into an open space, you'll have to fall down to the next ledge. But sometimes it might be in your best interest and save you some action points if there's a crystal that you need to do, say, further down that you've gone past. Also, as an anytime action, you can use the skills on your cards, not the one that you've already selected for your action points, that's gone. But these 2, you could use either of their skills, putting them in the discard pile, but remember, going through your deck can be dangerous. You can also use your character's skill. So Fix has got a heavy strike, +1 to your strike, but a limit of once per turn. So if we have a look at my actions, I've got 4 action points that I can spend now. So I think from my starting space, I'm going to spend 3 action points to jump. So I can skip over this empty space here. As a free action, I could flip over this mushroom token and see what it is. So I could spend this in the future to block 2. So when I need to lose health or grip, I could use this token to prevent 2 of that loss. So I can grab that and pop it on my player board. You can only have 1 at a time, so you might want to drop them if something better comes along. Now I've just ended up on difficult terrain here. Normally, you would need to lose a grip when you enter this terrain, so you discard the top card of your deck. But because of the card I played, it's got all those terrain types on the left-hand side, you avoid the effects of those terrain types if that's the card that you chose. Now we've only got 1 more action point left, so we'll just do a bit of a climb. I could do some other things, but I'm fine with that. Then we resolve the threat, so everybody loses a grip. So I need to discard the top card of my deck. I don't think it's particularly worth blocking 2 here, although it is a nice ability. I didn't want to use a skill card, by the way. I don't need to heal anyone. I'm not next to something to strike just yet. And Kestrel also has to lose a grip too. And then we have the discard and draw step. So at this point, I can discard any number of cards that I like, and I draw back up to 3. I think I don't want to run through my deck too much. I'm just going to draw one more and put it back up. The action point card goes into the discard pile now. Oh, feeling good would be a good skill. Climb 1 or strike 1. Do both if you're at full health, which I am at the moment. So going over to Kestrel. Kestrel would then need to reveal a threat. So we are looking at the highest person on the Leviathan. So the highest row, basically. Not right now, but when we resolve the threat in step 3. So if you wanted to change who that would target, you've got a chance to potentially, depending on the difference in your heights, I suppose. So the highest climber is going to gain a blight and lose a health, which isn't ideal. And you can see later on, once this becomes enraged, it will be +1 blight and -1 health to the 2 highest climbers. Kestrel wants action points for what they're going to try and do. And so they want 5 action points. Now they have an ability here, take flight. For 2 action points, they can do a kind of more limited jump. So go to any of these 3 spaces, limit of once per turn for doing that, but it's a cheaper jump, isn't it? I think what's even more attractive though is this wall jump here. So it's free to use the skill, you're just discarding the card and potentially running through your deck faster. So you could jump to any of these white spaces for free, or you could jump to any of the green spaces if you're willing to discard the other card from your hand. They don't need to go to the green space though, they're going to play that by discarding it and just jump to this white space. So skipping over 1 and going here next to a blighted crystal. So it's a bit dangerous doing these because you're going to gain a blight, but if you can do it all in one go, that's not so bad. That's kind of why they wanted 5 action points. It's a free action to use that skill, so they can use 4 of their 5 action points to basically reduce this 4 down to 0 and remove it. That's one of the things we need to do to win the game. That's 1 of the 8 crystals removed. Fantastic. And we've jumped past this hazardous terrain that would make you lose a health. The other skill is climb. Any climber may climb 1. They've only got 1 action point left, so can't take flight. Oh, and not forgetting, they struck a blighted crystal. They need to gain a blight. So even though they got rid of a 4, they did it in 1 action, so only take the 1 blight for it. Then with 1 action left, they will just climb up and maybe try and jump past that hazardous terrain next time. So there's a ledge waiting up there. Downside with starting all the way over here is a lot of the other crystals are far away. We resolved the threat, so the highest, which is unfortunately for Fix, it's Fix, gains a blight and loses a health. So gain a blight, lose a health, and then Kestrel doesn't want to discard anything from their hand, so I think we'll just fill that back up. So now we've got Vault. Remember, Kestrel is a free climber today anyway, so that is quite a lovely jump. That could take them way past the hazardous terrain they want to avoid. Or momentum, strike 1 if played immediately after a jump or glide, or while falling, strike 2 instead. So we keep going turn by turn, and as you can see, the threat cards for this Leviathan anyway will start moving you about. So it's a push 1, but once it's in range, it's a push 1 down, then fall. Some threat cards are attacks and will show you an area of effect. So from this red marker, the spaces up, down, left and right of it. Depending on the player that's activating, you grab an attack marker and place it around their piece. Now remember, the attack isn't going to go off until the resolve threat step. So you have got a chance on your turn to avoid that attack. You know where it's going to take place, so you might want to change your plans based on it. And there can potentially be some great big areas of effect. Some abilities don't place the attack marker until later on, so are even more dangerous because they will be right where you are. So you maybe want to avoid going near other players. If at the end of your turn there are no threat cards to be revealed, you gather them up, give them a quick shuffle, advance the threat along 1 space, and we deal them back out to their spaces, but this time we need to enrage a card. As you can see from the graphic design here, we start out with the first card gets enraged, so we flip that over, and on the next person's turn, instead of being pushed 1, they also will fall down. So falling also happens when your deck runs out of cards. If you want to, when you're drawing cards, you can choose not to draw your last card to stop that from happening. You fall down, you move your figure 1 space at a time until you reach a ledge. So if you're in a space like this, not such a problem. There we go, you've stopped, you've not really suffered. If you're on a ledge, you don't have to move at all. But if, say, you were up here, that would be a really terrible thing to happen, because not only are you going to fall all the way down the Leviathan, you have got to take the penalties of every space that you move through, which in this case is losing 2 health and you've got to start all the way down at the bottom again. It can also happen if you move into an open space. So if that card came out and said push down 1, even if it didn't make you fall like the enraged one does, you are now in an open space and must fall down. You don't take health penalties just for falling down. It's only if you move onto the specific spaces that you get those. If you want to, you can choose to fall through ledges, but you don't have to. So we keep going until either we have cured all of the crystals, blighted or otherwise. If we can do that, we win the game. After any climber is defeated by having their health and blight tokens meet or cross over, all the remaining climbers have got a last stand, one last chance to finish removing the crystals, or they'll lose. You finish the current turn, and then in clockwise order, everyone else gets one more turn, skipping anyone that is now out of the game. And after those turns, the game ends and we lose if we haven't managed to now do the crystals. So this is just the setup and the threat cards and stuff for Sage, one of the available Leviathans. At the moment, there are 8 different ones on the prototype, along with 6 more in sketch form, rather than the full illustrations. It's all going to be in a lovely spiral-bound book when it's finished, but you can see an example of some more of the amazing Leviathan art. And they each have their own threat decks, their own different kind of attacks, their own ways of escalating. Some scenarios will add new keywords for that game that will refer to things in the threat deck. They'll have special scenario tokens. You see, this one is just a really tall, thin one that you've got to climb on or jump over to its arms, but if you're pushed in certain directions, it's going to make you fall a long way down. Storm is like climbing a big S, but you can see all of these symbols in the columns. That's because the threat deck there will often refer to people that are standing in triangular or square columns, or might affect the entire column that the active player is in, as well as the column either side. Some things will add injury cards too. There is an injury deck, and depending what you get, it could be a permanent injury, so -1 to your next skill value, and then clear it. So some give you an opportunity to get rid of them, lose a health whenever you stop falling, that kind of thing. There are cards that go into your deck, so it still gives you 3 action points, but when you draw it, you're going to get pushed down 1, so you've got to watch out for that. Be careful, be wary of that coming out. There is a way of getting rid of it though. If that should cause you to fall down, then you do remove the card. And as well as all the different Leviathans, there are 5 more climbers that you could play with. Hazard, who can lose a grip to block 1 once per turn. Savvy gets this Farseer token and can put it into a space, and everyone can treat that as a normal space, so remove a hazard for everyone, and you can get rid of the token to climb 1. Brick gets this Iron Grip token after Brick loses grip. Exhaust the Iron Grip token, and the card you were discarding when you lost your grip goes into your hand instead. That's what it gaining secure means. And when you rest, you get the token back. Cheer has a Purple Thumb, gets a random mushroom from the supply at the start of each round, and whenever they use a mushroom, it gets set aside. They can carry up to 2 as well, rather than the normal 1. And they set them aside because of a special card they've got, Potency. Use the effects of up to 2 mushrooms you have already used, but then put them back in the box. Or when you use a mushroom, put 2 on their effect. And there's also the Mystic, who gets 3 Insight tokens and can exhaust 1 after revealing the threat card to skip resolving it this turn, but resolve it next turn instead. So we can't avoid it entirely, but if it would be really bad, we can delay it slightly. And they can all be combined with the 2 class decks we've already seen, but there's also Striker, Roughneck, Herald, Gadgeteer, and Magus, all with their own levels of complexity and stuff, their own challenges, their own powers in combination. So yeah, just in this beta tabletop simulator version, which again, you can try. I'll put a link for that in the description as well. There is a lot of content and combination. It's got beautiful artwork, it's a beautiful idea, it's a really nice theme that we're trying to save these Leviathans as well. There's plenty of discovery in all of those things, basically, all of those bits of variety, whether it's discovering the new threats, the new quirks of trying to climb the Leviathan and reach the crystals, how your particular combination is going to work together, both in the combination of your character and class, but also the multiple characters people are playing. There are rules for playing solo as well. You pick 2 characters, but they share a deck, so they've got their own individual health and blight tracks, but you've got 1 deck to deal with, and you don't heal your entire discard pile anymore. And it's just a beautiful kind of logistical puzzle of how you are going to scale your particular Leviathan. What's the most efficient way to get to these crystals? Can we risk hanging over these open spaces? Is it worth wasting a turn to go over and grab that mushroom? Is it even going to be helpful? Should I just flip it over on my way past and leave it for you to grab? Oh, I really want to go and clear the last few points on this crystal, but there's going to be this great big attack coming in and I'll be standing right next to you. There's loads of space for cooperation. And hopefully I'll be coming back at some point in the future to show you a full playthrough with the final thing. Wouldn't that be great? I'd love it. So there we go. That is an overview of Leviathan Wilds. If you would like to check out the campaign, see all of the final stuff, see what it comes with, then you can click the link in the description to go to the campaign page, and it's how you can support it and make the game happen and get a copy for yourself. I'll also put a link to the Tabletop Simulator workshop page where if you have Tabletop Simulator, you can, at the time of recording anyway, download the open beta and have a go with this mod yourself. If you'd like to see more from me, there are hundreds and hundreds of playthroughs and overviews and things on this channel. Hopefully you'd see something you like, and hey, you can subscribe if you'd like and get informed when more happen. Thank you very much for watching this though, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye everyone.